Tonight, our topic is titled The History of a Kusasi Chief. You know, on February 3rd this year, a press conference was issued titled Press Conference of the Kusau Traditional Council. And this press conference was sent to friends of the media, and it was signed by, there's no signature, but it was in the name of one Philip. I'm told he is the Pusganaba. Tonight's program is very, very important. It's going to be about facts. I've done a research on this topic. Why do I think this is very important? Because in the press conference, the Kusau Traditional Council stated that, indeed, in one of their paragraphs, they stated that, and I'm quoting, indeed, it is unquestionable for anyone or group to assume or think that it is possible for a non-Kusasi to become overlord of we, the Kusasi people, and the KTA. I'm not a Kusasi. Whether ordinarily, therefore, whether it is possible or not possible, it's none of my business. I don't care. But if I say I don't care because I'm not a Kusasi, why am I then talking about it tonight? The reason is that when I perused the press conference of the Kusau Traditional Council, the Mamprusis were mentioned there and blamed. So therefore, before I give you my research work on the topic, the history of a Kusasi chief, let me give you two of the reasons why I believe it is appropriate to discuss this press conference. In the press conference, the authors of the press conference stated in a paragraph, and let me read, talking about the Mamprusis. He said, "It is in the context of the above that we wish to express our deep concerns about the continuous spate of lawlessness and killing of innocent civilians, not just by settler Mamprusis in Boku, but also by the military personnel deployed to the town to protect lives and property." Ladies and gentlemen, the Kusau Traditional Council is saying that the lawlessness and killings that happened or is happening in Boku, they are blaming it on the Mamprusis. They did not just say the Mamprusis, they described the Mamprusis in Boku as settler Mamprusis, and that is provocative. When I want to give you the history of a Kusasi chief, then you then want to turn around and tell me that the history I'm giving, the facts that I'm giving is provocative. But you don't know that telling me that I am a settler when I'm not a settler is also provocative. That is one reason why I found it necessary to do justice to this press conference. Reason number two. Reason number two. In the press conference, the Kusal Traditional Council said, given the above facts and many more, anyone calling himself or being called a regent of Boku is simply a troublemaker and the cause of the ongoing acts of violence and criminal activities that are being perpetuated under the guise of chieftaincy conflict. We call on the government to swiftly deal with an impostor to allow for peace to return in Boku. The impudence of a dying cockroach. Ladies and gentlemen, in the 1980s, the late 14th Bokunaba, when he was enskined and gazetted as a chief, the father of the Kusasi leader, the current Kusasi leader, Ninchema, his father, Abugrago Azoka, whom I'll be giving you his history today. The Kusasis presented him as the chief of Boku, when a gazetted chief was already there, a Mamprusi gazetted Bokunaba. The Mamprusis did not take to arms. The Mamprusis did not tell the government to come and get rid of Abugrago Azoka. The Mamprusis went to court and got a court order restraining him from presenting himself as a Bokunaba. Why is this relevant? And again, this is common sense to the Kusasis. If there is anyone in Boku who is presenting himself as a regent, and then you believe that that person ought not to present himself as a regent, go to court and stop the lawlessness and violent activities that you are doing in Boku, and stop engaging the militaries. They will neutralize you. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the two reasons why I decided to pay attention to the press conference. Now, back to today's topic. Again, in the press conference, why today's topic is very, very important is that in the press conference, just as I quoted to you, let me quote again. The Kusal Traditional Council said, indeed, it is unquestionable for anyone or group to assume or think that it is possible for a non-Kusasi to become overlord of we, the Kusasi people, and the KTA. Now, this is a simple question. Tonight, we will find out whether or not Aninchema Abugrago Azoka, whom the Kusasis describe as their overlord, we will find out whether he is a Kusasi or a non-Kusasi. And from that, we can know whether what the Kusasis, the Kusal Traditional Council stated, that it is not possible that a non-Kusasi can be overlord or should think of being an overlord of the Kusasis, whether they are saying the truth or not, whether they know the meaning of what they said or not, whether they understand what they wrote or not. Tonight, I will help them do justice. Satemir Dima Mamprugu, many of you may know the history of Abugrago Azoka. But for the benefit of the millions out there who don't know, I'm going to share to the world this history that you and I know. And let me say, I take this seriously. And before I give you whatever information that I'm going to give out, and to prove the Kusal Traditional Council that they don't know who they are, they don't know their identity, they don't know that many of them are not Kusasis. Philip the Pusga Naba, who had his name on it, is not a Kusasi. And I challenge Philip, if he thinks that what I'm saying is not true, I challenge him to file a civil suit against me. I also challenge Aninchema Abugrago Azoka that the history that I am going to provide about him and his father, if it is not true, if he disagrees with me, if he thinks I'm defaming his reputation, his character, he should file a civil suit challenging what I said, and I will meet him in court. Mahama Yaraga can do that for him. Cletus Azoka can do that for him. All and any Kusasi lawyer who wants can do that for him. Ladies and gentlemen, straight to the point. The history of a Nankusasi chief. Who is this Nankusasi chief? His name is Abugrago Azoka, and his son, called Aninchema, is being paraded by the Kusasis as their overlord. So tonight, we're going to do justice to that. From my research, I'm going to read to you verbatim what I have found out from my research. Aninchema, the overlord of the Kusal Traditional Council, sometimes referred to as Bokunaba by Ghanaians who don't know the true history of Boku and chieftaincy in Boku. Aninchema, for the avoidance of doubt and for the benefit of my audience around the world, let me add the alias Bokunaba so that people will understand just for now. Aninchema, who is also known as Bokunaba, his father is called Abugrago Azoka. Indeed, the name is Abugrago Azoka. His true identity name, tribal name, is Abugrago Azoka, which has been anglicized as Abugrago Azoka. If I tell you that I'm a Mampusi, it means that if you want to investigate, you have to find out first whether my father, the one who gave birth to me, is a Mampusi or not. If I say I'm a Mampusi and you do your research and find out that Teacher Edie, who is my father, is a Moshi, then it means I'm lying. If you do your research and find out that Teacher Edie, who gave birth to me, is a Mampusi, then it means that yes, truly, I am a Mampusi. It's as simple as that. If you want to know whether Teacher Edie is a Mampusi, you have to find out whether his father, Nasa Bugri, was a Mampusi or not. If you want to find out if Nasa Bugri was a Mampusi, you have to find out whether his father. So it's as simple as that. Not rocket science, simple common sense logic. So therefore, I ask myself, Aninchema Abugrago Azoka, whom the Kusasi think he is a Kusasi, is he really a Kusasi? And the answer is no, he is a non-Kusasi, because his father is not a Kusasi. His father is a Yanga by tribe. Now let me read to you my research, verbatim. Abugrago Azoka played a central role in the Boku chieftaincy problems that we have today. It is therefore interesting and important for all peace-loving citizens of Boku and those who have the welfare of its citizens at heart to know the background and the history of Abugrago, Azoka, and Ninchema, the Kusasis Bokunaba. Ladies and gentlemen, by foul and crook means, the Azoka family has become one and the only Kusasi royal family in Boku, thus turning the true Kusasis into Talakas and his servants. Abugrago Azoka was born to a younger parents. The father of the current Kusasi Bokunaba was born to younger parents in a village or a town called Dutinga. These are facts verifiable. In a town called Dutinga, traceable today. Dutinga is in the southeastern part of Burkina Faso. And not Ghana, Burkina Faso. Abugrago Azoka's father was a citizen of this town called Dutinga, but his mother came from Kamswak in the same locality. So the grandfather of Aninchema, the current Kusasi Bokunaba, his paternal grandfather came from Dutinga in Burkina Faso, a Yanga. His maternal grandmother came from a town or village called Kamswak, also in Burkina Faso. And if he thinks I'm lying against his personality, he should take me to court. Both villages are in the Yanga province of Mamprugu, the Mamprugu kingdom, and under Sanga, a town called Sanga. And these two, Dutinga and Kamswak, are under the authority of the Sanga Naba. Abugrago migrated with his parents. That's the father of the Kusasu Bokunaba. He migrated with his parents from Burkina Faso to Pusiga to settle first in Pusiga. They were given free land to settle by the Pusiga Naba at that time. You will get to know the year. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pusiga Naba at that time was a Mampusi, and the Pusiga Naba at this time, Philip, is a Mampusi. They are descendants of Nagbewa, direct descendants of Nagbewa. And we call them the Pusugdema in Mampruli. Ladies and gentlemen, While in Pusiga, Abugrago became a domestic servant of the Pusiga Naba and was specifically responsible for taking care of the staple. The father of the current Kusasi Boku Naba, when he was in Pusiga, his family were servants to the forefathers, let me say, or a forefather of Philip, the current Pusiga Naba Philip. Ladies and gentlemen, now this is, so we know that the Azoka's family, the Abugrago Azoka, came from Burkina Faso and then settled first in Pusiga. And now they are in Boku. How come? What is the history? How come that they are in Boku? I will tell you the circumstances that made them to leave Pusiga to come and settle in Boku and created the problem in Boku for Mamprusis and true Kusasis, for all of us, for Moshis, for Bises, for Houses, for Evers, every tribe living in Boku, for Dagombes to be suffering today. While in Pusiga, as a domestic servant to the Pusiga Naba, Abugrago took advantage of the privilege that was given to him by the Pusiga Naba and raped a young girl in the bush. And as a result of that, Abugrago fled Pusiga. He fled Pusiga before he could be apprehended for raping a young girl. As a result of that, his family was banished by the Pusiga Naba. Ladies and gentlemen, these are facts, and they are men and women in Boku today who can testify to this evidence and facts that I'm presenting. Ladies and gentlemen, this event that led to Abugrago and his family to flee Pusiga, that led to the Pusiga Naba then to banish them. This event occurred in the 1940s during the reign of one of my great-grandfathers called Na Yakuba II. Na Yakuba was the Boku Naba between 1936 until his demise in 1951. And this incident, this rape incident, that made the Pusiga Naba to banish Abugrago, the father of Aninchema, the overlord of the Kosal Traditional Council. This incident happened in the 1940s, at the time that the Boku Naba name was Na Yakuba II. Na Yakuba descendants are still alive and living. His direct children, some of his direct children are still alive and living and can testify to this. So therefore, I challenge Aninchema, I challenge the Kusasi to sue, to make a civil case against me for saying these things if they believe that they are lies against their overlord. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, this incident happened in the 1940s during the reign of Nayakuba II, who was the Bukunaba between 1936, from 1936 to 1951. And there are many people, as I said, still alive, living in Boku, who witnessed the arrival of the Azoka family. Now, when the Azoka family flee Pusiga, following a crime that Abugrago committed in Pusiga, when they fled Pusiga and came to Buku, where did they live? When they came to Buku, who received them? Who took care of them? Where did they live in Buku? Ladies and gentlemen, we will get to know the answer. It was one of my grandfathers called Yirmia, who later became a Bukunaba. And for my viewers, Yirmia, my grandfather, is the father of one of the Council of State members in the current MPP government, by name Alhaji Sule Yirmia. I call Alhaji Sule Yirmia my uncle. And it was Alhaji Sule Yirmia's father, my grandfather, who received the father of the current overlord of the Kusasi people. Alhaji Sule Yirmia, son of Na Yirmia, is still alive and can testify to this. Alhaji Seidu Abagre, whose father and grandfather saw the arrival of Azokas, the Abugragos, into Boku, is still alive, and many more. So the Azoka family continued to live with Yirmia in his palace. And that was where Abugrago again became a domestic servant to Na Yirmia. Ladies and gentlemen, it was usual to accept some of these criminals. Unlike today, when you rape somebody, you go to the police station. Those days, there was no police station. It was the judicial system, was the chieftaincy, the chiefs, the chieftaincy, the chief court, they handle all those things. And it was normal that criminal like this, if you rape somebody, a family may receive you with the hope that they would be able to transform you. Ladies and gentlemen, fast forward. I'm not going to give you all the facts. I'm going to give you just some of the salient facts. So Abugrago's father, that is Aninchema's grandfather, was a Susra and traditional healer. He was not a Tindana. He has never been a Tindana, not even in Dutinga, not when he came to Pusga, and not even when he came to Boku under the care of the Boku Naba and Najirmia. He was never and has never been a Tindana. Nowhere, not even in his own homeland in Burkina Faso. He was also not a member of a royal family. Today he is a chief, the overlord of the Kusasis. He is never and was never from a royal family, even in his whole homeland in Dutinga. But today, the Kusasis, who are saying it is impossible for a non-Kusasi to become their overlord, don't know. The third generation Kusasis don't know that Aninchema is a non-Kusasi, that his forefathers came from a village called Dutinga in Burkina Faso, that they migrated from Dutinga to Pusga, and from Pusga to Boku. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, it was Nayirmiya, father of Council of State member Alhaji Sule Yirmiya, who received the father of the Kusasi overlord, Aninchema. Azoka lived the rest of his life in Nayirmiya's palace and died under his care, ladies and gentlemen. The Kusasi overlord, who is a non-Kusasi, who has made it possible for a non-Kusasi to become a Kusasi overlord. His father died under the care in the house of a Mampusi man called Yirmiya, father of a Council of State member called Alhaji Sule Yirmiya. These are verifiable facts. I said, let me repeat, he died. The Kusasi overlord's father died. I mean, his grandfather, Azoka, died in Natenga, in the palace of a Boku Naba called Yirmiya, Na Salma Yirmiya. He died there under the care of Nayirmiya, a Mampusi, not a Kusasi, a Mampusi. And I challenge any Kusasi, I challenge Aninchema, the overlord of the Kusasi, to dispute that his grandfather died under the care of Yirmiya. Indeed, Nayirmiya, with the assistance of his kings, buried and performed the funeral of Azoka, father of Abugrago, grandfather of Aninchema, the Kusasi's overlord, who is a younger by extraction. It was the Mamprusis who performed his funeral, who gave him a befitting burial. Ladies and gentlemen, fast forward. It was the same Jeremiah. And let me correct this. When I say Jeremiah, and at the time that these things happened, Jeremiah, father of Alhaji Sule Jeremiah, member of the current Council of State, at that time, Jeremiah wasn't the Bokunaba. Remember, this happened in the 1940s. At that time, he wasn't the Bokunaba, but he was a chief in one of the villages of or under the Boku traditional area, not Kosau traditional area. The Kosau traditional area is for Kusasis, and Aninchema, the current Abugrago son, whom I'm giving you his history, who is a younger. His father was taken care of by Jeremiah. Jeremiah at that time was a chief of one of the villages of the Boku traditional area. I repeat, Boku traditional area. I repeat, Boku traditional area. So Jeremiah demarcated a piece of land, and this is also evident, a piece of land. He demarcated a piece of land on the uphill side from a Hausa man called Malam Mahama. Jeremiah demarcated a piece of his land on the uphill side from a Hausa man called Malam Mahama and settled the Abugrago's family there. Ladies and gentlemen, Malam Mahama's children, or should I say his descendants, who worked on the farm that I'm talking about, the piece of land that Jeremiah gave to Abugrago's family. The family, Malam Mahama is a witness. He may not be alive today, but his family, his children, grandchildren are there. I believe they are still alive, some, if not all. And before God and man, if their father told them this, before God and man, they can bear testimony to what I'm telling you. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting to the conclusion of the history of a Nankusasi chief who is the overlord of the Kusasi people. And when I say Kusasi people, I don't mean the true and pure Kusasis. I mean the third generation Kusasis. Somebody like Thomas Abila, who is a Moshi, but call himself a Kusasi. With no legacy anywhere, not in Dutinga, their original home, their ancestral home. Ladies and gentlemen, the piece of land that was given to the Abugrago to settle, that structure that was created for them by Nairmia became their only home. And it is that structure, that piece of land, which has now become what the third generation Kusasis call the Kusasi Bokunaba Palace. The Aninchema Abugrago Azoka, who Ghanaians are made to know or believe that he is the Bokunaba. His palace, which is in Gingande, that land was given to his father by a Mamprusi man called Yirmiya, father of Alhaji Sule Yirmiya, member of Council of State in the current MPP government. Interestingly, let me provide you this piece of evidence. Interestingly, Ziblim Amandi, ladies and gentlemen, and Alalpoka, Ziblim Amandi and Alalpoka became husband and wife. They became husband and wife. Yes. Ask me, who is Alalpoka? Who is Alalpoka? Zibrim Amandi is a Mamprusi. The late Zibrim Amandi is a Mamprusi. How about Alalpoka? Ask any Kusasi who knows himself, his true history, and the history of the Kusasi overlord. Ask that Kusasi, who is Alalpoka? Ladies and gentlemen, I said Ziblim Amandi and Alalpoka became husband and wife. Now, if you want me to give you how how that happened, I'll tell you from my research. Now, when Yirmiya received the Azokas who fled Pusiga and gave them food and shelter. And I told you that historically he became a sandal bearer, a domestic servant to Yirmiya, father of Alhaji Sule Yirmiya. I can't stop emphasizing this because it is an issue of evidence and facts. So when he was working as a domestic servant, in appreciation of Jeremiah's assistance, and as was the practice those days, Abugrago, Azoka's sister, called Alalpoka, was given to the family of Jeremiah, the Amandi family. The Alhaji Sule Jeremiah family. You know what? Before I continue, I just want brother Imoro Naba and Abu Naba. He said, "Na Jeremiah received them because the mother was a younger by tribe." Okay, you see how the dots are connecting. So it's just like if you ask the question, oh well, if you said Abugrago raped a young girl in Pusga, and the Pusga Naba banished him, and he fled and came to Boku, and out of the many people in Boku, out of the many Mampusis in Boku, why wasn't it that my grandfather or my great grandfather? When I say my grandfather, I'm talking of direct. Let's say Na Yirmia was my grandfather. Nasa was my grandfather, but Nasa was my direct grandfather. So I just need to clarify this. So if you ask the question, when Abugrago fled, when the Azokas fled Pusga, why is it that it wasn't Nasa who received them? Why is it that why did Yirmia interested in receiving them? Why did Yirmia receive them? Out of sympathy, out of the fact that his mother, the woman who gave birth to Yirmia, Na Yirmia, father of Alhaji Sule Yirmia, in other words, Alhaji Sule maternal mother, was a younger woman. So naturally, the younger blood in Na Yirmia touched his heart to stretch his arm to the Azokas to receive them. And as I said, Na Yirmia wasn't the Boku Naba then, it was Na Yakuba, Na Kolga. So what happened was that Na Yirmia pleaded with Na Kolga, his brother, to intervene to ask for forgiveness on behalf of the Azokas to the Pusga Naba. And indeed, history will tell you that Na Yakuba did that. And Pusga Naba forgave the Azokas on condition that they performed some rites, they pacified their gods for the crime committed. And that was what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, so because of the service of the Azokas, of the father of Aninchema, the Kusasi overlord, because of his service to Na Yirmia, Alalpoka, I believe Aninchema's auntie, was given to the Amandi family. And the Amandi family gave Alalpoka to Ziblim Amandi, and they became husbands and wife. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, let me conclude. Now, history will also tell you that the Amandi Ziblim and Alalpoka marriage at a point in time came to an end. In other words, they divorced. Is there evidence of the marriage? Yes, there's evidence. Now, but before that, let me say this. Ziblim Amandi was the first Mampusis who were listed for detention by the CPP government in 1958. When the man Nayirmiya accepted, pleaded on his behalf, and sheltered him, fed him, and opened his eyes for him, I mean the father of Aninchema, the Kusasi overlord, when Nayirmiya became Bokunaba in 1957, the Kusasi presented him, Abugrago, father of Aninchema, also as Bokunaba. So he betrayed his master. He's betrayed someone he should consider calling his godfather. He betrayed his savior. He betrayed the Mampusis. And in 1958, when they created this problem in Boku, and then the CPP government, the politics that we're talking about, the CPP government started listing Mampusis, arresting them and putting them in detention. Interestingly, Alalpoka husband, Ziblim Amandi, was the first among the list. You see how ungrateful the Kusasi overlord family is. So today, if Aninchema opened his mouth to say, hey, yeah, that day the Kusasis are many, they can do whatever. I am not surprised. There is no any Mampusi who should be surprised if you know their history. Unfortunately, the third generation Kusasis who don't even know their own history, how do we expect them to know the history of their overlord? How do we expect them to know that their overlord is not a Kusasi, but a non-Kusasi? The evidence of marriage of Alalpoka and Ziblim Amandi, God in his own wisdom blessed them with a child. Bless them with a child. And that child, a Mampusi, his name, my late brother, may his soul rest in peace, a former footballer who played for Boku Highlanders, the first football team in Boku, who also played for Real Tamale United. My brother, the son of Ziblim Amandi and Alalpoka, the son of the Mampusis and the youngest, the son of the Yirmiyas and then the Azokas, the son of Alhaji Sule Yirmiya and Aninchema Abugrago Azoka, the Kusasi overlord. Their son, his name is Ibrahim Ziblim Amandi. So Ziblim Amandi and Alalpoka gave birth to Ibrahim, who was popularly known as Ringo, a football star. Ringo also has children and grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, I will end tonight's program here. But now let's look at the overlord of the Kusasi people, who is a non-Kusasi. So when you look at the chieftaincy tree for the Kusasi people, their genealogy, Abugrago Azoka, who usurped the Mamprusi chieftaincy in 1957. He is in the history of the Kusasi, in the 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 1 million years history of the Kusasi. Their chief, who is a non-Kusasi, became a chief and their overlord in 1957. That is why, as far as the third generation Kusasis are concerned, to them, Boku started in 1957. That is all that they know. Boku started in 1957. So Abugrago Azoka is their genesis. After Abugrago Azoka is Aninchema. Aninchema Abugrago Azoka. Just two. The Kusasis have the right to have a community chief. I am a Mamprusi, but I believe they have their right to have their community chief. Every community, every ethnic group in Boku has the right to have their community chief, to have their chief. The Kusasis have the right to have a community chief. And whoever they choose to be their community chief. And they chose a younger man to be their community chief called Abugrago Azoka. And after his death, Aninchema Abugrago Azoka inherited him. Which therefore means that tomorrow, if you wake up to hear that Aninchema Abugrago Azoka has passed away, the next person that the Kusasis can present as their community chief is going to be a descendant of a Yanga. And I'm told that among the Azoka's family, among Abugrago's families, there's one guy called Edi, whom the Kusasi call Prince. I'm told he is the heir apparent to the Kusao Traditional Council overlordship title. And interestingly, Edi's father was never a chief. Aninchema Abugrago Azoka is Edi's uncle, not Edi's biological father. The question is, Aninchema's biological sons, will they compete with Edi to become the overlord of Kosao Traditional Council? Will they say that my father was the overlord of you people, the Kosao Traditional Authority, Council, whatever you call yourself? Would one of Aninchema, the current Kosasi overlord's son, say that I have to be the overlord of you people? Or Edi will say, I have to be the overlord of you people because my uncle was the overlord. I don't know how the Kusasi will resolve this, but that is none of my business. But this is something that one day, the Kusasis will also have to deal with. So Mampusis, be patient, be patient, be patient. Don't be in a hurry. God's time is the best time. Good night, and God bless us all and grant peace in Boku. Bye-bye.